Elias Ward had lived most of his life in quiet places, where no one paid much attention to him. His ranch sat at the edge of a dry field, with wind blowing sand across the old fences, and the sound of creaking wood echoing whenever the breeze grew strong. He was not rich, not strong-looking, and not someone people talked about. But he had a calm nature, and he tried his best to help others whenever he could. His land was small, with only a few goats, one old horse, and a cabin that needed repairs every season. Still, he held on to it because it was the only thing left from his late father. One warm evening, when the sky turned orange and the day was slowly ending, Elias rode toward the Apache camp to trade a few things. He carried a small bag with dried beans, 2 rough blankets he had sewn together, and some metal tools that the tribe sometimes needed. He did not expect anything special to happen that day. He only hoped he would get enough cornmeal or hides in exchange so he could make it through the next week. But when he reached the camp, he immediately sensed something different. The people were gathered in circles, their voices low and tense. Some looked troubled, others angry. Children stood close to their mothers, holding their hands tightly. A few of the warriors stood near the center of the camp, with stern faces. Even the fires burned unusually quiet that evening, as if the air itself held its breath. Elias tied his horse to a post and stepped forward carefully. He greeted those he passed, but most only nodded back. Too distracted to offer their usual warm smiles, he saw Chief Nantan speaking with several elders. Their expressions were serious, and the more Elias listened, the more he felt something was wrong. He did not want to intrude, so he walked toward one of the huts to wait for someone to trade with him. While he stood there, he heard soft footsteps behind him. When he turned, he saw the Apache twins Sani and Luyu standing a few feet away. They were young, maybe 19 or 20, with long dark hair, braided neatly, and warm, gentle eyes that reflected worry. Elias had known their mother many years earlier and had helped her gather wood during a harsh winter. So the twins always showed him kindness, but today they looked frightened. Sani, the more outspoken twin, stepped slightly ahead. She opened her mouth as if to speak but stopped, glancing over her shoulder fearfully. Luyu stayed close beside her, holding her own hands together as if trying to keep them from shaking. Elias frowned softly, sensing their distress. A moment later, he saw the chief's nephew, a tall young warrior with sharp eyes, walking across the camp with a proud stride. The twins immediately looked down at the ground. Elias understood then this was the man chosen for them. He had heard rumors that the chief's nephew wanted them both to strengthen his position within the tribe. Many had whispered that the twins did not want this match, but until now, Elias had never seen the fear clearly on their faces. He lowered his voice. "Are you both all right?" Sani shook her head slowly, her eyes shimmering with something close to desperation. But before she could answer, 2 older women walked past, motioning for the twins to join the gathering near the center. The girls bowed their heads and walked away quietly, leaving Elias with a sinking feeling in his chest. When he moved toward the crowd, he overheard the chief speaking. Chief Nantan's voice was strong, carrying across the entire camp. He announced that at sunrise the next day, the match would be formally declared. The reason given was unity within the tribe, but many faces told a different story. Discomfort, uncertainty, and even sorrow. Elias felt a heavy weight settle inside him. The twins had always been gentle souls, and he remembered how they used to bring berries to his ranch when he helped their mother. They had laughed easily then, full of life and innocence. But now their smiles were gone. It bothered him deeply. After the meeting ended, Elias tried to trade his goods, but his heart wasn't in it. He kept thinking about the twins. He wondered whether anyone else in the camp saw their fear as clearly as he had. He stood near his horse for a long time before climbing into the saddle. As he rode home, the sky darkened and the first stars appeared. The ride back felt longer than usual. Every sound in the quiet desert night reminded him of the look in Luyu's eyes. The whisper of wind through dry grass brought back Sani's trembling breath. He tried to push the thoughts away, telling himself it was not his business. He was just a poor rancher with his own troubles. What could he possibly do? Even if he spoke up, would anyone listen? But he could not escape the feeling gnawing in his chest. He kept seeing the way the girls stood together, holding each other like two small birds trying to hide from a storm. Their fear was not something small. It was deep, real, and impossible to ignore. By the time Elias reached his cabin, the night was fully settled. He lit a small lantern and placed his goods on the table. But he couldn't bring himself to unpack. His mind was too busy. He sat on the old wooden chair by the window and stared into the darkness. He knew he had no wealth, no power, nothing grand to offer. He had only his name, his heart, and his stubborn belief that no one should live in fear. The thought troubled him so much that he barely slept that night. He tossed and turned, picturing the sunrise, the gathering, and the twins being forced into something they clearly didn't want. When the first light of dawn touched his window, Elias rose, his face pale but his mind clearer than ever. Something inside him refused to let him stay silent. He didn't know what he would say or how he would say it, but he knew one thing. He could not stand by and watch two innocent girls be pushed into a life that would break their spirits. He saddled his horse, tightened the worn leather straps, and took a deep breath. Though his hands trembled slightly, his eyes were steady. He whispered quietly to himself, "I may be poor, but I'm not heartless." Then he rode toward the Apache camp once more, unaware that the choice he made that morning would change not only the twins' lives but his own forever. Elias rode toward the Apache camp with a heavy heart and a restless mind. The sun had not risen fully yet, and the air felt cold against his skin. He kept thinking about the twins and the way they looked the previous evening, afraid, confused, and helpless. Every step his horse took seemed to pull him deeper into a decision he had not planned but could no longer avoid. He reached the rocky path near the creek just as the early light touched the water. The air there was cooler, and the sound of flowing water brought a strange quietness to his thoughts. As he guided his horse toward the narrow bend, he spotted two thin figures sitting close to the ground. At first he thought they were travelers, but then he recognized the matching dark braids and small frames. It was Sani and Luyu. Both sisters were huddled together near the edge of the creek, their clothes slightly dusty from travel. Their eyes widened when they saw him approach. Sani stood up quickly, brushing dirt off her knees, while Luyu remained seated, her face pale and tired. Elias climbed down from his horse, concern rising in his chest. "What are you two doing out here?" Sani swallowed hard, glancing around as if expecting someone to appear from behind the rocks. "We tried to run earlier," she whispered, "but the scouts caught us. They brought us back to the camp, but when everyone slept, we slipped away again." Luyu lifted her head slowly. There were faint marks of tears on her cheeks. "We don't want the match," she said softly. "We don't want that life." Elias felt his stomach twist. He wished he had the right words, but everything seemed too big, too dangerous. "What will happen if they catch you again?" he asked. Already fearing the answer, Sani wrapped her arms around herself. "They will force us back. The chief's nephew is determined. He thinks taking us both will prove his strength. But we cannot live under someone who only wants to show power." Luyu nodded. "We want a home, not a cage," she murmured. The wind blew gently, carrying the soft sound of the creek with it. Elias stood there silently, trying to calm the storm inside his chest. The twins were young but not foolish. Their fear was not childish, it was real. And now that they were here alone, far from the camp's protection, they were at even greater risk. Luyu looked down at her hands. "Our mother tried to help us," she said. "But she has no power to stop the chief's nephew." They refused her pleas. Sani stepped closer to Elias. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were brave. "We don't know where else to go. We don't know if running again will work. They will find us. They always do." Elias felt anger building not at the tribe, not even at the chief, but at the unfairness pressing down on these two young women. He wished there was a simple solution, something he could do without risking anyone's safety. But all he had was concern, not authority. Still, He couldn't leave them here. "You should come with me for now," he said finally. "It's too dangerous to stay out here." Sani looked at him with hope, but Lu Yu's eyes filled with worry. "If they see us with you," Lu Yu whispered, "it may cause trouble for you." And Lu Yu's eyes. And Lu Yu's, Elias nodded slowly. "Maybe. But trouble is already coming for you both. And I can't pretend I don't see it." He helped them to their feet and gave them water from his canteen. The twins drank carefully, grateful for even that small kindness. Then he led them off the path and into a shaded area where the ground was soft and hidden from sight. They rested there while he kept watch. After some time, Sani spoke again, her voice small and uncertain. "There is one way out," she said. "Our mother told us last night. But it is not simple." Elias turned to her. "What way?" Sani took a deep breath. "Someone from outside the match can claim us through a protective tradition. If a man offers his name, the tribe must consider it. The chief cannot ignore it, unless he has strong reason," Lu Yu added softly. "But the man must be respected. He must be seen as honest. Otherwise, the chief will think it's a joke, and we will be punished for trying." Elias felt the words settle deeply inside him, as though they had been placed there with purpose. He knew the tradition. He had heard of it years ago when an Apache widow was protected by a trader who gave his name to shield her from debt. It was rare, but it existed. But offering one's name was not a small thing. It meant responsibility. It meant stepping into the tribe's view and challenging someone stronger and more powerful. "Who would do that for us?" Lu Yu asked quietly, her voice trembling with sadness. Elias opened his mouth to answer, but he hesitated. He wasn't brave enough. He wasn't wealthy enough. He wasn't anything enough. But he looked at the twins, two young women with nowhere left to run, and something inside him shifted. "You deserve to be safe," he said, more to himself than to them. "You deserve a choice." Sani wiped her eyes. "We don't expect anything from you. We just didn't know who else to talk to." He closed his eyes for a moment. He felt the weight of their trust, even if they didn't ask him directly for anything. And it made him feel responsible in a way he had never felt before. Their mother's voice echoed in Sani's earlier words. Someone must offer his name. He thought about his empty cabin, his lonely evenings, his small ranch that held more silence than laughter. What harm would it do to share his name, his protection, with two young women who needed shelter? But it wouldn't be simple. The chief's nephew would not accept it quietly. There could be anger. There could be consequences. Still, he found himself speaking before his thoughts could stop him. "I don't have much," Elias said softly. "Not land, not wealth, but I have a name that has never harmed anyone. I have a heart that can't ignore fear. If that means anything, if it can keep you safe." He didn't finish the sentence, but the twins understood. Their eyes softened with hope and disbelief. Lu Yu whispered, "You would do that for us?" Elias took a slow breath. "If it keeps you from a life you don't want?" "Yes." The sisters looked at each other, their hands trembling as they held on to one another. For the first time since the previous evening, a faint spark of relief lit their faces. But before they could say more, a distant call echoed from the camp, voices searching the area, calling the twins' names. They froze. Elias felt the moment tighten like a pulled rope. Decisions could no longer wait. "It's time," he said quietly. "Whatever happens next, you won't face it alone." He helped them onto his horse and began walking beside it, leading them toward the camp with steady steps. His heart pounded, but his resolve did not shake. The sun was rising now, warm and bright, as if lighting the path he had chosen. He was just a poor rancher. But today he was about to stand against fear and stand for two lives that needed him. Elias walked beside his horse, as the twins sat carefully behind him, their hands gripping the saddle for balance. The sun was now climbing over the horizon, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and gold. The light felt warm, But Elias could not feel calm. His heart beat faster with every step that brought them closer to the camp. He knew the moment of facing everyone would be difficult. But he also knew there was no turning back. The twins had placed their trust in him, and he could not let fear guide him anymore. As they reached the edge of the Apache camp, the usual morning sounds were missing. Instead of laughter, cooking fires, and chatter, there were raised voices and quick footsteps. People were moving around as if searching for something or someone. A group of warriors stood near the central fire, their expressions sharp, their eyes scanning the surroundings. Elias recognized the tension immediately. They were looking for Sani and Luyu. When Elias stepped into view, the sisters slid off the horse and stood close beside him. A shocked whisper moved through the crowd as more people noticed the three of them together. Some stepped back, others leaned forward, curious, and a few stared with disapproval, as if Elias had broken a rule simply by being there. Chief Nantan appeared soon after, his steps slow but firm. He was an aging man with wise eyes and a respectful presence. Behind him stood his nephew, a young warrior named Tohopka, whose posture was stiff with irritation. The moment Tohopka saw the twins beside Elias, his face darkened with anger. His jaw tightened, and he took a step forward, as if ready to confront Elias directly. The chief raised a hand, stopping him. Elias felt small under all the eyes watching him, but he forced his shoulders to stay straight. Sani and Luyu stood so close their shoulders brushed his. Their presence gave him courage he didn't know he had. He could feel their trust, their hope, and their fear, all of it depending on the next words he would say. Chief Nantan spoke first. "Rancher Elias Ward," he said calmly, "you come at a moment of great confusion. My people search for the twins. They were not in their sleeping place this morning." His gaze shifted to the girls. "And now they stand with you. Tell me why." Elias swallowed, feeling the dryness in his throat. He took a small step forward. "They were near the creek when I found them," he said honestly. "They were frightened. They did not want the match that is set for them." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tohopka's fists tightened at his sides. The chief looked at his nephew sharply, then back at Elias. "Many young people fear changes," he said slowly. "But fear does not break tradition." Elias nodded. "I know. And I do not speak to break tradition." He paused, breathing deeply. "I speak because I believe no one should live with fear in their heart." The chief studied him, waiting for more. Tohopka took another step forward, his voice hard. "This is not your place, rancher. They belong in the tribe's hands, not in yours." At those words, the twins flinched. Sani spoke up quickly. "We do not belong to anyone," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "We should be allowed to choose." Tohopka glared at her. "Your choice was made by the elders." Luyu, usually quiet, stepped closer. "We accept the tribe's wisdom," she said softly. "But we cannot accept a life that makes us feel trapped." Elias looked at the chief. This was the moment everything depended on. His heart pounded so loudly he could almost hear it in his ears. He gathered every bit of courage he had, remembering the sleepless night, the frightened sisters, and the quiet promise he had made to himself. He stepped forward again. "I know I am not a man of wealth," he began softly. "I know my ranch is small, and my life humble. But I have lived honestly on this land. I have helped when I could, and asked for little." He glanced at the sisters. "These girls do not want to run. They do not want to be disrespectful. They only want to live safely." He took a deep breath. "So, I am here to offer something. Something I hope will give them protection." The camp went silent. Even the wind stopped moving for a moment. Elias continued, his voice steady now. "By your tradition, a man can offer his name to protect someone from harm. I wish to offer my name to Sani and Luyu." He stood tall, though his legs shook slightly. Not to take them, not to claim them, but to shield them from a match they fear. A wave of shock moved through the crowd. Women covered their mouths. Warriors exchanged confused glances. The elders leaned to whisper among themselves. Even the chief looked taken aback. Tohopka's face burned with fury. You? He shouted. A poor rancher? You think your name is stronger than mine? He stepped close until he stood face to face with Elias. You insult tradition. Elias did not move. His quiet voice was the only strength he had. I do not insult it. I follow it. I offer my name with sincerity. The chief raised his hand, and everyone fell silent again. His deep voice carried authority. By our custom, he said slowly, if a man offers his name with truth in his heart, the offer must be considered. Tohopka spun toward him, shocked. Uncle, the chief cut him off. Silence. We will listen. He turned to Elias. You offer your name. But do the girls accept it? All eyes shifted to the twins. Sani looked at Luyu. Luyu held her sister's trembling hand. For a moment, neither moved. Then, as if sharing the same heartbeat, they both stepped forward. Sani spoke clearly. We accept his name. Luyu nodded. We choose him as our protector. A hush swept through the entire camp. Even Tohopka, burning with anger, did not speak. The chief's expression softened with sorrow and respect. He had known the twins since they were children, and he understood fear when he saw it. Chief Nantan's voice became firm again. Then, by our tradition, the rancher's offer stands. The match will not be forced. Gasps filled the air. Some people seemed relieved, others worried. But no one protested the chief's decision. Tohopka's eyes were full of fury, but he could not challenge the chief in front of the tribe. He turned away sharply, his shoulders stiff with humiliation, and walked off without another word. The chief faced Elias. You have chosen a difficult road, he said quietly. Protecting them will bring challenge. Elias nodded. I understand. The chief looked at the twins and touched their shoulders gently. Go with him. Then, find the peace you seek. He gave Elias a long, meaningful look. Do not fail them. Elias bowed his head respectfully. I will not. The crowd slowly scattered, still whispering. Some looked at Elias with surprise, others with admiration. The twins stood beside him, relieved but overwhelmed. Elias guided them toward his horse. Their old lives were behind them now. A new path lay ahead, full of uncertainty, but also hope. As they walked together out of the camp, the rising sun cast long shadows behind them. Elias knew life would never be the same. He had offered his name, and now he carried the weight of 2 lives with him. But deep in his heart, he felt something strong, something steady. He felt he had done the right thing. Elias led the twins away from the Apache camp slowly, giving them time to breathe after the heavy moment they had just lived through. The sun was already bright, warming their faces as they walked. Behind them, the whispers of the tribe faded, replaced by the soft wind brushing over dry grass. Sani and Luyu stayed close to Elias, still shaken. But there was a new softness in their steps, like a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. They reached the ranch after a long, quiet ride. The small cabin stood at the edge of the field, its wooden walls rough and weathered by time. The fences leaned a little, and the shed door hung crooked on one hinge. To anyone else, the place might look sad and lonely, but Elias looked at it differently. It was home, even if humble. Now, it would become home for 2 more. Sani stepped down from the horse first, taking a slow look around. Her eyes scanned the dusty yard, the old water barrel, and the small group of goats, resting in the shade. Luyu followed, her gentle eyes taking in everything with curiosity instead of judgment. They did not seem disappointed. If anything, there was relief in their expressions. This is your home? Luyu asked softly. Elias nodded, suddenly aware of every flaw in the place. It's not much, he admitted, slightly embarrassed. But it's honest and peaceful. Sani gave a small smile. Peace is better than anything else right now. The simple kindness in her voice eased Elias's worry. He showed them the cabin, a single room with a cooking space, a table, a few shelves, and a small bed in the corner. There was also a loft above, reachable by a rough wooden ladder. "You two can take the loft," he said quickly. "I'll sleep down here." The twins exchanged grateful looks. They took off their shoes and climbed the ladder, touching the wooden beams gently, as if afraid to damage anything. Dust rose from the edges of the boards, and small webs clung to corners, but they didn't complain. Instead, they began cleaning without waiting to be asked. Luyu folded blankets. Sani swept the floor with a small broom Elias didn't even remember owning. Their movements were quiet, careful, and full of purpose, as if creating order in this little space helped calm their hearts. Elias stepped outside to give them room. He fed the goats, checked the small field, and fixed the loose hinge on the shed. Every so often, he glanced toward the open cabin door. He heard gentle voices inside, soft laughter, the sounds of hands working, and the peaceful rhythm of two people settling into a new life. After about an hour, the twins came out carrying a pot. Sani had found beans and dried vegetables in his pantry. With a shy smile, she asked if they could cook. Elias nodded. He didn't remember the last time someone had cooked in his home besides him. As the pot simmered over a small fire, the smell filled the air warm and comforting. Luyu placed freshly washed bowls on the table outside. Elias watched them work together like they had done it for years. They moved with a natural balance, one doing what the other forgot, each helping the other without speaking. It made the ranch feel lived in again, alive in a way he had not felt in a long time. When they finally sat to eat, the twins kept thanking Elias. He shook his head every time. "You don't owe me anything," he said gently. "I just did what felt right." "But you risked anger from the tribe," Luyu said. "And from Tahopka." Elias exhaled slowly. "I know, but I couldn't watch you be afraid." The twins lowered their heads, overwhelmed by his simple honesty. The next few days passed quietly. They swept the yard, cleaned the cabin, washed clothes, and fixed what they could. Luyu grew close to Elias's old horse, brushing him every morning and whispering to him in her soft voice. Sani helped in the field, planting seeds with steady hands. Elias worked beside them, showing them how to mend fences and boil water drawn from the well. The cabin no longer felt like a lonely place. It felt like a beginning, but peace did not last long. On the fourth day, a shadow appeared on the horizon, a single rider moving fast. Elias recognized the horse before he recognized the man. It was Tahopka. Sani saw him first and froze. Luyu stepped closer to Elias, fear returning to her face. Elias stepped forward calmly, though his heartbeat quickened. Tahopka rode all the way to the ranch yard before stopping. Dust rose around him as he dismounted, anger burning in his eyes. "I came to see the truth for myself," he said sharply, "to see if you truly took them." Elias kept his voice steady. "I didn't take them. They came under my name. They chose protection. They chose peace." Tahopka glared at him. "You think that excuses anything? You embarrassed me in front of the tribe." Sani finally found her voice. "We never wanted to embarrass you. We just didn't want that life." Tahopka pointed at Elias. "You hid behind him, a rancher with nothing." Luyu stepped forward unexpectedly. "He has more kindness than you showed us." Tahopka opened his mouth, then closed it, stunned by her words. Elias stepped between them gently. "You've seen they are safe. That is all that matters. There's no reason to bring anger here." Tahopka's jaw clenched, but there was uncertainty in his eyes now. After several tense seconds, he finally looked away. "This isn't finished," he muttered, but his voice lacked the strength it once had. He mounted his horse and rode away, dust rising behind him. The twins breathed shakily when he was gone. Elias comforted them with calm words. "He won't hurt you here. You have my word." That night, the ranch felt quieter, but not in a frightening way, in a peaceful way. The twins cooked again, and Elias joined them outside under the stars. He told them stories from his childhood, stories he hadn't told anyone in years. They listened, smiling softly. Later, when the fire burned low, Sani said, "We thought we would never have a safe place. Luyu added. But now we have hope. Elias felt something warm settle in his chest, a feeling he had not known in a long time. The ranch was still old, still simple, still worn. But now, it held laughter, light, and purpose. And for the first time in many years, Elias looked at his home and didn't see loneliness. He saw a future. Elias woke the next morning to soft sounds in the cabin, quiet footsteps, gentle whispering, and the light clatter of bowls being arranged. For a moment he simply lay still, listening. The warmth of those small sounds filled the space in a way he wasn't used to. For years, his mornings had started with silence, but now there was life again. Sani and Luyu came down the ladder carrying a small meal they had prepared, warm bread made from ground corn, and a simple stew from the leftovers of the night before. They greeted Elias with shy but bright smiles. He thanked them and sat at the table. The morning light streamed through the open window, touching everything with a soft glow. After breakfast, the three of them stepped outside to begin their daily chores. Sani helped mend the old fence, while Luyu brushed the horse and fed the goats. Elias chopped firewood nearby, occasionally glancing at them with quiet appreciation. They worked with gentle confidence, as if the ranch had always belonged to them. Throughout the day, the simple routines continued. They watered plants, cleaned the shed, and washed clothes by the creek. The twins laughed, sometimes small, soft laughs that warmed Elias's heart. He had not expected them to adjust so quickly. He had only offered them safety, but they were giving back more than he realized. By afternoon, the ranch felt transformed. There were neat piles of firewood, patched fences, and clean tools hanging in the shed. Even the goats seemed happier, wandering around with curious energy. The cabin that once felt old and lonely now felt cared for, touched by gentle hands and hopeful spirits. As the evening settled, the twins prepared a meal again. This time, they used herbs from the fields and flavored the stew with wild onions Sani had found near the creek. Elias watched them moving around the fire, their faces soft in the warm light. He felt a deep sense of peace that he had not felt in years. They ate together outside while the sky turned from orange to purple. The first stars appeared above them. Luyu leaned back and looked up with awe. "The sky here feels bigger," she said quietly. Sani nodded. "At the camp, we never saw it like this. We were always afraid of who was watching." Elias understood the weight of those words, but now, watching them relax under the open sky, he felt proud they could finally breathe freely. After dinner, the twins helped clean up. They talked softly about small things, how the wind sounded through the trees, how the goats behaved, how the cabin felt warm at night. Their voices were full of calm, not fear. Elias listened, grateful to hear them speak without trembling. But peace never stays untouched for long. The next morning, a group approached the ranch. From the distance, Elias saw 3 riders moving slowly toward his land. His heart tightened, ready for trouble. He stood tall as the riders came closer, but when they arrived, he recognized the one in front. It was Chief Nantan himself. Behind him rode 2 elders, both calm and respectful. There was no anger in their faces, only quiet purpose. The twins, who had been working near the shed, hurried to Elias's side. Their eyes were wide with worry, but Elias placed a reassuring hand near them. They stayed close, ready for whatever would happen next. Chief Nantan dismounted slowly. He walked toward Elias with the steady, thoughtful steps of a man who had come with important words. When he stood before them, he looked at the twins first, then at Elias. "I have come not to question," he began, "but to understand." The twins bowed their heads respectfully. Elias nodded. "Please speak freely," he said. The chief sighed, as if carrying a heavy load. "Many in the tribe were surprised by your offer," he told Elias. "Some were angered, but others remembered your kindness. They remembered the winter when you shared wood with our people. They remembered how you always came with honesty." Elias listened, uncertain of what the chief would say next. Chief Nantan continued, "I have watched the twins since they were small. They have always been gentle. I feared for them when pressure grew for the match. But traditions can sometimes hide pain behind duty. Sani looked at him with sad eyes. We never wanted to disrespect the tribe, she said softly. Lu Yu added, we only wanted freedom. The chief nodded slowly. And your choice has made me see something I should have seen earlier. He turned to Elias. When you offered your name, you did not do it for pride or power. You did it because you saw fear in their hearts. Elias lowered his head slightly. I only wanted them safe. A long silence passed. The wind brushed through the dry grass. The goats shifted quietly behind the shed. Then Chief Nanten stepped closer and placed his hand on Elias's shoulder. Your name carries courage, he said. And kindness. More than wealth or strength. It holds honor. I came today to thank you. Not as a chief, but as a man, Sani gasped softly. Lu Yu covered her mouth in surprise. The chief looked at them next. You are free. No one will question your choice. And no one will come to force you again. The relief that washed over the twins was almost visible. Their shoulders loosened, and their eyes filled with tears. Tears not of fear, but of gratitude. The chief stayed a while longer, observing the ranch. He saw the repaired fences, the neat yard, the calm animals. He saw how the twins moved with comfort, how they looked to Elias with trust. When he finally prepared to leave, he said something Elias never expected. From today forward, your name will be respected among our people, the chief said. You protected those who needed protection. That makes you a man of two fires, one of courage, one of compassion. Elias felt humbled. He bowed slightly. Thank you, he whispered. The chief and the elders rode away slowly, leaving behind a quiet ranch filled with hope. Sani and Lu Yu turned to Elias with smiles that reached their eyes. He thanked you, Sani said softly. He honored you, Lu Yu added, her voice warm. Elias felt emotion rise in his chest. He looked at the twins, standing together in the sunlight. They were no longer the frightened girls he had found near the creek. They were stronger now, protected, and ready to build new futures. That evening, the three of them sat outside again, sharing a simple meal as the sky darkened. There were no worries, no fear, only peace. They talked about their plans for the ranch, how they would plant more seeds, fix the barn roof, and maybe buy a few more animals when they could. Elias watched the twins laugh softly under the stars. He felt grateful not just that he could protect them, but that they had brought warmth back into his life. The ranch was still small, still worn, still simple, but now it was filled with light, filled with hope, and as the night settled around them, Elias realized something important. He had given the twins his name to save them, but in return, they had given him something he had lost long ago, a reason to live with purpose again. The future, though uncertain, looked brighter for all three of them, and for the first time in many years, Elias felt truly at peace.